She called me 58 times the next evening. By the 15th call, she was screaming. By the 30th, she was demanding answers. And by the 58th call, she was begging for a place to sleep. But none of that would have happened if she had just opened the front door. It was a brutal Friday morning in late January. The temperature had dropped below freezing overnight. I am 69 years old, a retired orthopedic surgeon. I spent 35 years of my life fixing other people's broken bones. That morning, I walked out to get the newspaper, slipped on black ice in our driveway, and heard a sickening crack. My ankle was shattered. The pain was blinding. I was lying on the freezing concrete, entirely unable to stand up. I managed to pull my phone from my robe pocket and dial my wife, Martha. We had been married for 19 years. I funded her boutique business, paid off her previous debts, and built the multi-million-dollar estate we lived in. Through the glass of the front door, I saw her walk into the hallway. She was wearing a tailored designer coat, holding her car keys. She looked through the glass, saw me lying on the icy driveway, and opened the door just a crack. "Martha," I gritted through my teeth, shivering violently. "My ankle is broken. I can't move. Please, help me inside and call an ambulance." She didn't rush out. She didn't drop her purse. She looked at her diamond watch. Then she looked down at me with an expression of pure, unfiltered annoyance. "I am meeting the interior designer at the new gallery in 20 minutes, she said, her breath turning to vapor in the freezing air. "I cannot ruin my suede boots out there." I stared at her, my vision blurring from the pain. "Martha, it is 12 degrees out here. I am going into shock." She sighed, tightened her scarf, and looked at me with cold, dead eyes. "I am not your nurse, Richard. Crawl inside and call a paramedic. I don't have time for your clumsiness." And then, she closed the door. I heard the deadbolt lock click. She walked out through the garage, got into her luxury sedan, and drove right past me down the driveway. She left her 69-year-old husband lying on the freezing concrete with a shattered bone, simply because I was an inconvenience to her schedule. I didn't yell after her car. I didn't cry. I dragged myself across the ice, inch by painful inch, until I reached the porch stairs. I called 911 myself. While I was lying in the back of the ambulance, shivering and heavily medicated, something inside me permanently snapped. She thought she was leaving behind a helpless old man. She didn't know that she had just left behind the architect of her entire comfortable life, and I was about to tear the building down. The surgery took 4 hours. They put 6 screws and a titanium plate into my shattered ankle. When I finally woke up in the sterile, quiet hospital room, it was already completely dark outside. I looked at my phone on the bedside table. Martha hadn't called. She hadn't sent a text. My wife of 19 years didn't even care to know if I had survived the surgery. My next-door neighbor, a good man named Arthur, had followed the ambulance that morning. He had gone back to my house to pack an overnight bag for me. He left it on the chair in my room. I reached into the bag to grab my tablet to check my emails. Except, it wasn't my tablet. Arthur had grabbed Martha's iPad by mistake. The silver one she always left on the kitchen counter. I opened the cover. The screen woke up, and it was already unlocked. I wasn't looking to snoop, but there was a bright white email thread open on the screen, and the subject line froze the blood in my veins. It read, "Expedited estate sale, pre-market value." I propped myself up against the hospital pillows, ignoring the throbbing pain in my leg, and started reading. Martha wasn't just thoughtless that morning. She was calculating. She was exchanging emails with a high-end luxury real estate broker. She was making plans to sell my estate, the house I had paid for in cash, years before she ever moved in. But how? The deed was solely in my name. And then, I found the text messages to her private lawyer. "Richard's fall on the ice this morning is the perfect documentation," she wrote at 9:30 a.m., while I was literally screaming in the back of an ambulance. "He is 69, physically failing, and his mind is slipping. The paramedics will surely note his confusion from the shock. I kept scrolling. The next message made my stomach turn. Once the judge grants me medical power of attorney on Monday morning, I will transfer him to the Silver Pines Assisted Living Facility. Then, we can liquidate the house and the joint accounts to fund my new gallery. I stared at the glowing screen in the dark hospital room. She didn't just step over me on the freezing concrete because she was in a hurry. She was using my shattered bones as the final piece of evidence to declare me legally incompetent. She was planning to lock me away in a nursing home, take control of my mind, and steal 35 years of my life's work. Most men would have felt their hearts break. Most men would have cried. But I spent 3 decades as an orthopedic surgeon. I don't operate on emotion, I operate on structure. I picked up my phone. I didn't call Martha. I called my corporate attorney, Marcus. It was 9 p.m. on a Friday night, but he answered on the second ring. "Marcus," I said quietly, the painkillers numbing everything except my absolute focus. "I need an emergency injunction. I am revoking all spousal power of attorney. And we are moving my entire estate into an irrevocable blind trust. Tonight." Martha thought she had left a helpless, fragile old man bleeding on the driveway. She didn't know that a wounded lion is the most dangerous thing in the jungle. They say the most dangerous animal in the wild is the one that knows it is being hunted and decides to play dead. I was discharged from the hospital on Saturday afternoon. My neighbor, Arthur, drove me home. I was in a walking boot, using heavy aluminum crutches. When I hobbled through the front door, Martha was waiting in the foyer. If I hadn't read her iPad the night before, I would have believed her performance. She rushed over, her face a perfect mask of fake concern. "Oh, Richard," she cooed, gently touching my arm. I was so worried. I tried to call, but my phone died at the gallery. "Here, let me help you to the recliner. You shouldn't be stressing your mind with anything." Stressing my mind. There it was, the subtle groundwork she was laying to prove I was mentally declining. I looked at the woman who had left me freezing on the concrete just 24 hours earlier. I didn't spit in her face. I didn't confront her about the luxury real estate broker or the nursing home brochures hidden in her bag. I simply nodded, my voice slow and intentionally weak. "Thank you, Martha," I whispered. "I am just so tired." "You handle everything." She smiled. It was a cold, victorious smile. "Don't worry about a thing, darling," she said softly. "I will take care of your finances. I will take care of your future." And she meant it. She fully intended to take everything. What Martha didn't know was that while she was out picking a luxury lease for her new art gallery on Saturday, my attorney, Marcus, was working overtime. We didn't just revoke her medical proxy. We executed a complete structural ghosting of my wealth. The $4.5 million estate we lived in, it was legally transferred into the Richard Vance Irrevocable Blind Trust. The joint bank accounts? I drained my portion exactly 85% of the liquid cash, which I had earned entirely before our marriage, and moved it into a private, heavily guarded offshore account. I left just enough in the joint checking account to cover the electric bill. And her 3 platinum credit cards, the ones she used to fund her lavish lifestyle, I didn't cancel them immediately. I scheduled a hard freeze to trigger on Monday morning. At exactly 8 a.m., Sunday passed quietly. I sat in my recliner, reading a book, playing the part of the broken, helpless old man. Martha packed her designer bags, humming happily in the kitchen. Then, Monday morning arrived. The day she planned to walk into a judge's chambers, declare me incompetent, and steal 35 years of my life's work. She walked downstairs at 7:30 a.m., wearing a sharp navy power suit. "I have a very important meeting with the estate planners today, Richard," she said smoothly, grabbing her keys. "Just rest. I'll be back this afternoon to discuss our next steps." "Good luck with your meeting, Martha," I said, taking a slow sip of my black coffee. I watched her luxury sedan pull out of the driveway. She thought she was driving toward absolute freedom and millions of dollars. She didn't realize. She was driving straight off a financial cliff, and she had forgotten to pack a parachute. At exactly 8 a.m. on Monday morning, I was sitting in my recliner, drinking a cup of hot black coffee. My ankle was throbbing, but my mind was completely clear. Across town, Martha was walking into the plush offices of her high-end estate lawyers. She was carrying her designer handbag, expecting to sign a few papers, declare her husband mentally incompetent, and walk out with total control of a $4.5 million empire. I looked at the clock. 8:15 a.m. That would be the exact moment the senior partner looked up her financial records to initiate the transfer. I could almost see the color draining from her face when the lawyer told her the news. "Mrs. Vance," he would say, looking at his screen, "the estate is no longer under your husband's name. It was transferred into an irrevocable blind trust over the weekend. And your joint accounts, they have a balance of $312. I knew she would panic. I knew she would try to hire them to fight it. She would reach into her designer purse and pull out her platinum credit card to pay their retainer. And the machine would flash. Declined. At 8:32 a.m., my phone vibrated on the side table. Martha. I didn't answer. I just watched it ring. She called again at 8:35. Then 8:40. By the 15th call, she was leaving frantic, screaming voicemails. By the 30th call, she had been escorted out of the law firm for causing a scene. She was standing in the freezing cold on the sidewalk. She called me 58 times. I finally answered the 58th call. I brought the phone to my ear and said nothing. I just listened to her hyperventilating. "Richard," she screamed, her voice completely broken, stripped of all her arrogance. "Richard, what did you do? The lawyers said the house is gone. My cards are frozen. I went to my new gallery to pay the lease, and they turned me away. I have absolutely nothing. What is going on?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "I am simply taking care of my future, Martha," I said, my voice perfectly calm and steady. "Just like you told me to do." "You can't do this," she sobbed. "You are my husband. You're supposed to provide for me. I have nowhere to go. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight?" I looked out the window. It was still below freezing outside. I thought about the blinding pain of my shattered ankle. I thought about the cold concrete. "I don't know, Martha," I said quietly. "Richard, please," she begged, completely humiliated. "I'm freezing out here. Help me." I leaned closer to the phone. "I am not your nurse, Martha," I whispered. "Crawl inside and figure it out." And I hung up the phone. I didn't block her number. I didn't need to. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever heard. When you spend your life building a foundation for someone else, they often start to believe they are the ones holding the house up. They step over you, thinking you are weak. They forget that the man who built the house knows exactly which pillars to remove to make it all come crashing down. Outro. Hook. Have you ever had to silently remove the pillars from someone who took you for granted? Have you ever had to walk away to save yourself? Leave a comment below and share your story. I read every single one. If this story gave you peace of mind, hit the subscribe button. Let's keep standing strong together.